Wanting to keep my podcast sponsorships and advertisements free, I stayed away from such options. Instead, earlier this year, an alternative appeared. With my fiancée, we have joined a rapidly growing marketing network for a company which develops technologies and healthcare products based on traditional Chinese medicine. Instead of advertising products and services, I've decided to extend this opportunity to you. While this opportunity may not be for everyone and might still be unavailable in your country, I have no doubt that in time it could be, and therefore here we are. If you are looking for a side hustle, an alternative way of earning, and a space to grow as your own boss and manager, this program could be for you. Commission-based and fully remote, I believe it to be an opportunity for those who feel like a 9-to-5 model takes away too much of their life and isn't exactly worth their time. If you'd like to learn more, follow the link below. If your country is on the list, you're in. I look forward to working with you, and now, enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to WS Podcast. My name is Wojciech Salski, I'll be your host for today. And before we begin, may I just remind you, if you think this is a podcast that should be shared with others and should be listened to and enjoyed, then please make sure to subscribe. Click the follow button, depending on the platform you're using it, and share it with a friend maybe, maybe put it on social media, whatever works. It helps the podcast to grow. It allows me to speak to a greater audience and get more feedback as well, which is really, really helpful. And it just fills my heart as well. So if you want to make a little complimentary gift to my heart, then please do so. Otherwise, if you'd like to support the podcast in any other way, you can follow the link below. There are options there to either join our team or, support the podcast financially, or maybe just send me an email with your thoughts, or maybe a suggestion of which book or which idea to explore. Now, before we begin as well, thank you so much for all of you who are supporting in all the ways, I really enjoy the comments, the emails, the messages I get, as well as the support that I get from you guys. So yeah, thank you for that. And these are really particularly nice surprises to wake up to. And so yeah, thank you for doing so. And you know who you are since you did it. So other than that, thank you for being. Thank you for listening. And let's get to the point, shall we? Today, on a slightly more light-hearted note, I'll try, although the topics I've prepared for you are still somewhat similar to what we've been exploring over the past few weeks. We will discuss the one of the great writings by Hunter Thompson called Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. You might actually know this in Poland, the title of the movie for this, because the US-made movie, the title in English is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the same. It's a really great movie as well. I definitely recommend you check it out after reading the book. In Poland, in Polish, the translation is Las Vegas Parano. If you've not met it before, please watch it. I find this movie as well as the book highly entertaining. It's overall, Hunter Thompson's writing is, it's somewhat controversial, I guess. It's very unapologetic and raw, kind of sort of. There even was an invented term which is gonzo journalism to Thompson's way of being a journalist and of writing. It's this sort of mixture of really unapologetic, raw, true depiction of events without any sort of censorship of any kind, or, without any pleasant additions to whatever unpleasant there may be, but also mixing it with emotional and often rather outlandish ideas to sort of highlight the absurd or to underline some concepts that the author wanted to expose. And for me, first of all, it was very entertaining. I first watched the movie when I was younger, then I've gotten to read the book, and I've recently had a chance to get the book again, a different copy, an English one, read it and then shared it with my younger brother. I don't know if he's already finished reading it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's one of those crazy stories that seem to not really have much relevance to our daily life, and yet again, as many of these great novels do, they allow us to expose and sort of bring forth some of ideas, problems, societal norms, and so forth that I would argue are as entertaining as they are inspiring and educating, really. So, yet again, I will not really share much of the plot. I want to keep it for you. The one thing I'll say is there are two main characters in this story, although one of them is supposedly the major protagonist because he's the narrator of the whole ordeal, and they go on this crazy adventure, greatly enhanced by the many substances, from alcohol to some crazy acid-like drugs that are enhancing this journey of them in many ways. And yeah, I think it's a must-read for anyone out there who would like to try something a bit more raw, but on a light-hearted side, more than The Road, for example. If you want to read raw-like material, then Cormac McCarthy is there to to shock you, and so is Hunter Thompson. The only difference is Hunter Thompson's work might be much more pleasant to the eye, so to speak, than the gruesome and very, very raw depiction of horror and tragedy that Cormac McCarthy specialized in. So yeah, I guess let's kick it off. My plan for today is 4 themes, and each of them relates to one another as well, so I'll sort of go back and forth on them. The first one is about the overall idea of this pursuit of American dream. So, the quote that I've prepared for you from the book is, "We were somewhere around Barstow on the edge of the desert when the drugs began to take hold." So this chaotic odyssey that our protagonist, or the both of the protagonists embark on, is sort of a mixture of real life events and some drug-induced traumas, one could argue, and the underlying theme, which definitely you'll notice the moment you start reading the book on the first few pages, is this criticism of the obsession, with success, with consumption, with materialism, and I guess the author sort of exposes the promises that are empty of these societal norms and expectations. You know, the whole American dream, as I understand it, and as I was sort of sold it when I was younger, was related to this idea that, you know, you can really get what you want if you work for it, and all you have to do is get to the right place, meet the right people, and work your ass off, so to speak, or maybe make a splash. Often it related, at least in my mind, to this idea that you had to look a certain way, consume in a certain way, and sort of act in a certain manner to be able to achieve it. But the promise was there that you can pursue your happiness, and you can get what you want. Now, this is exactly what the beginning of the story sort of exposes as a hollow promise. The initial reactions that the characters encounter are filled with sort of fake people, fake attitudes, and focused mostly on materialistic goals, and, you know, sort of the hustle being to hustle everyone around, being of the highest sort of value. And then, of course, the character, the main protagonist, actually reflects on it in a way that, you know, to criticize it is one thing, but to, in line with this idea, don't hate the player, hate the game, he actually exposes it as being the way it is, and then plays the part to the point that by the very end of the story, you can tell that he really embraced the criticism of it, while, you know, enjoying himself down the road. And a quote here that I have from Noam Chomsky is a quote I've recently learned, and it really struck deep in this idea of consumption and materialism, and our lives being incessantly impacted by these, you know, marketing schemes and propaganda of many sorts. There are people that work really hard to eliminate your sense of purpose for the explicit goal of making you a more efficient consumer. Now, of course, if you think about it, and I hope that you don't watch much TV, I doubt many of you, my audience, actually pays attention to contemporary media. I think, you know, watching TV and sort of jumping from channel to channel is a thing of the past. Or it's most likely that you're still watching TV if you're of a certain age, because nowadays majority of people either are online on some sort of social media, or maybe they're watching movies or series on streaming platforms, and so obviously it's not the same environment as the TV used to be. So hopefully you don't see as many advertisements there, but of course advertisements are everywhere, and it's all about advertisements, I think, that sort of underlines this. You know, it's as we've discussed in Brave New World and Brave New World Revisited, that there are many people and many organizations that take advantage of us as consumers by either first making us feel, you know, like we lack something, or that we're not good enough. Maybe also we are doing it to ourselves through social media, when we see other people's lives and we think their lives are better than ours, because obviously we're not seeing the bad parts. They only show the good parts, and we know of our life the whole story. And of course, as easy as it may be to say that we should consider that the other person's life is also as complex as ours, you know, our ego and our mind plays tricks on us, and it's very, very easy to judge by the cover without really reflecting upon it. And it's the same thing that these emotionally driven advertising schemes and propaganda are employed with, the advertisements that make us feel that we're not good enough, maybe because the lady on the advertisement, on the commercial, is much prettier than your girlfriend, or maybe because the guy on the commercial is much better built than you are, and so then there is a promise, buy this watch and you'll be like this amazing actor, or get your lips done and you'll be like this sexy lady, or buy this sort of medicine and you won't have those troubles that you had before. Of course, many of these promises are empty ones, and I guess the criticism that Hunter Thompson offers in the book is to this whole pursuit of American dream as a whole hollow promise, filled with obsession of success which never comes. So, I guess the invitation here to begin with is to reflect, similarly as we did last week, on which of these prompts, which of these ideas that you might have about yourself or about the world are truly yours and are beneficial to you to have them, and to be wary of employing ideas and schemes of others as your own. And to wonder whether or not there is not an underlying motive behind someone saying something to you. I guess a good, maybe a bit more relevant to our relationship here. Of course, maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of feel I'm not. It seems to me that as a thinking listener, you are able to discern at which point, whether, for example, someone like myself, running a show or, doing a podcast, is genuine about the way they conduct themselves and about their thoughts, ideas, or has some ulterior motives that is trying to maybe hide. The quickest thing that comes into my mind in terms of our recognition of other people's fakeness is how people smile, right? Obviously, this does not mean that on a podcast, if someone is not smiling genuinely to a camera when they're not actually speaking to anyone other than the camera for the time being, it's not exactly the same. But as you observe people, as you hear their tone of voice, and as you look behind the curtain of what they're saying, you can definitely gauge, if you're paying attention, whether or not the person is genuine. And I guess we should deploy the same attitude of skepticism, of healthy skepticism, towards all the ideas that are being sold to us through commercials and, political propaganda and whatnot. Now, in terms of the second point, second theme, the story goes that we should consider the dangers of excess and escapism, and quite frankly, this is something that I would definitely stand strongly behind, and we've already explored it in both Brave New World and Anxious Generation. And, this idea of dumbing ourselves down with some drug-fueled, activities. Now, the quote here to begin with is, "Every now and then, when your life gets complicated and the weasel starts closing in, the only cure is to load up on heinous chemicals and then drive like a bastard from Hollywood to Las Vegas." The road to self-destruction is obviously imminent and unavoidable in such situation, unless you stop. We know that overindulging in anything is, to one's detriment. You can get addicted to everything, and even things that are healthy in healthy doses can become unhealthy if you exceed the dose, right? You can literally drown yourself with water if you drink enough of it. You can drive your body to extinction by working out too much, and you can certainly self-destruct through over drinking, overeating, over binging. Doing anything over in excess is probably to your detriment. If I were to record a podcast after podcast after podcast all day, every day, without any stop, I would also obviously at some point probably have a heart attack, because I wouldn't rest up. I wouldn't allow my mind and my body to recuperate, and even such a trivial activity as sitting and talking to a camera could become my sort of final act, if you will. An interesting quote that I heard about addiction is when you cannot get enough of that which almost works. And let's reflect on this for a moment, and maybe I'll also link below, if you are addicted to cigarettes and you would like to quit. There is one episode from the very beginning of the year called, based on the book Easy Way to Quit Smoking by Alan Carr, and it's one of the most popular episodes of the podcast, and it's also the book with which I've quit 3 times, and the last time for real. I guess it's fair to reflect on these troubles of destroying ourselves and escaping reality. Even if you don't take any drugs, even if you don't drink that much alcohol, maybe you don't smoke, maybe you don't overeat, you still might, and especially if you're a young person, young male in particular, I wouldn't be surprised if you overindulge in, for example, playing computer games or binge watching, or scrolling, doom scrolling, as they say. And doom scrolling applies to both men and women. I guess playing games is more prevalent with young men, and obviously social media are much more prevalent with young women. But for the most part, all of it will have the same kind of negative results if you overindulge in it. The idea of escaping reality is particularly attractive if your reality is not how you would like it to be, and I guess it is fair to say that you have 2 ways of approaching your situation. One is obviously to escape, maybe focus on excess drinking, excess eating, excess working out. You can truly drive yourself mad in all directions. Or you can acknowledge the reality you are living in and focus your energy in changing that reality for the better. And of course, that's long term, that's a much better solution. Short term, it's also much more unpleasant, right? It's this idea between instant gratification versus delayed gratification. As we discussed last week and the week before that, if you start working out, it will take you a few months or potentially even years, depending on your situation and the intensity of training and your regime and your diet, when you'll actually see the results. So that's the delayed gratification model. Of course, once the results appear, you will feel additionally motivated to keep going, but the beginning is very difficult to go through. Whereas the opposite of that, which would be being lazy, overeating, or constantly watching Netflix, is obviously that the gratification comes instantly. It's the regret that you will feel and the problems that come with such inactivity that will show up later on. So if you don't trick yourself, if you don't discipline yourself to work through these short-term attractive propositions towards a long-term valuable goal, you're much more likely to self-indulge and self-destruct, in the meantime. And my invitation for you, as always, and this has been the invitation from the very beginning, from the very first episode, which is called The First Step, because it's literally about taking that first step, is if you want to change something in your life, don't wait, just take small action now and tomorrow and the day after and do so. Because long term, you will be grateful that you did. Short term, it will suck, probably, as many things do when you're just getting started. So yeah, this is definitely not the message that the author offers. The author offers us a grotesque series of events that make us aware of just how low a person can fall. But it's definitely inspiring to confront these challenges and to consider that you don't want to be like the protagonist, or maybe in your cynicism you think you want to be like that. But of course, I do believe that all of us know deep within ourselves what's right and what's wrong, and escaping the reality and maybe escaping into excess will only bring us negative, outcomes over time. I can promise you that. I'm certain of it. And I certainly felt some of these troubles in my own life over the course. I've luckily not overindulged to the point that I destroyed my health, touch wood, or or stuff like that. But I definitely had moments when I realized that maybe I'm smoking a bit too much, or I'm over drinking, or I drink myself to the point that I black out and I don't know what happened, and I feel literally regret related to that because I missed out on some beautiful events, or I made some stupid choices that I shouldn't have. So definitely reflect on that and remember the ideas that we've explored in The Brave New World related to this idea of numbing ourselves down and the dangers of that. It's much easier to manipulate you when you're dumb. So, for the benefit of the whole of humanity and yourself, don't be dumb. The third theme is about fearless truth-seeking, and we actually had that discussion last week in relation to Metro and the different propaganda that was sold to our main character. Now here, and this is in general this idea of gonzo journalism as a celebration of fearless truth-seeking, basically exposing the absurd. The quote is, "Buy the ticket, take the ride." And it reminded me of this quote from Bukowski, "Don't try." If you don't feel the burning desire that truly eats you up from within to do something, don't try, because that's not truly yours. It's only when you do feel such desire, you should just do it. Don't try, just do it, kind of thing. So, of course, the challenge of truth-seeking is that it oftentimes feels easier, seems easier in short term. Yet again, it all is connected really, to lie. Maybe because you don't want to be rude to someone, maybe you don't want to hurt your loved one, maybe you don't want to admit to your mistake, and so forth. And your ego will come up, and your mind, which is smart, will come up with many reasons why it would be appropriate to lie. But of course, as Mark Twain said, a person who always tells the truth does not have to remember what they said. Lie is a short-lived entity. In a similar way, we should be fearless in truth-seeking, because there are so many lies being used against us every day, everywhere really, because there are motives behind lying that are too enticing for people to overlook. Unfortunately, in our immense wisdom and creativity, we as humans are really good at coming up with ways to bend the reality to our needs. And of course, the exposure that social media especially, and all the algorithms out there, give us to consuming and sharing and resending and engaging with things that are not true, is putting us at a greater challenge to find what's true and to stay true to yourself. These ideas of manipulated narrative versus truth, it's much easier to tell if someone is a liar or if someone's lying to you if you know them. Of course, if it's a stranger online, or not even a stranger but a bot, it's pretty much impossible to know unless you know the facts, or unless you check them. And I guess the invitation that Mr. Thompson's work offers is, to challenge illusions and embrace reality with curiosity and without apologizing for our curious and truthful seeking. On the side of social media and misinformation, disinformation, desinformation, malinformation, whatever you want to call it, my invitation to you, as always, is do your own homework. In the same way that I would never advise someone on something without first realizing whether or not this is something true for me to say, I should still take into account that some people might be doing just that. And so, for example, if I were to go to visit a financial advisor, even though I might not be able to grasp as much about finances as they already know before meeting, I will do my due diligence to ensure that at least I know what kind of advice is a good advice on that front, or maybe I'll consult someone else, someone trusted. In the same way, don't take advice from people that don't live what they preach, or don't have the results you want. Like, don't take financial advice from someone who's broke. In the same way as don't take health and sports advice from someone who doesn't do any sports and looks rather unhealthy. The problem with political agendas, propaganda, and marketing is, of course, that it might not be as easy to recognize if something is true or not, because some topics are really complex and demand of us more attention. But I would argue that if you want to face something, if you want to buy that ticket and take the ride, then you should know, at least to a certain degree, what you're looking for, what you're expecting to find there, simply because it will put you at a better position to deal with it, to recognize and to interact with this So it's like a pyramid of needs, sort of. So like, you know, at the very top of it, you have some wishes, some desires that you want to get to, and on the way, you might need to get someone's advice towards them, but your foundation is yours to make, right? Like, you should learn the basics so you can tell whether the person or, you know, whatever the source is talking based on good foundations, and then based off of that, ideally, if you have someone else to reach out to that you can confine with, you can get to the top more well-informed and minimizing the downside, minimizing the risks that are related to finding that truth. But most importantly, I would say, if you're interested in something, do your own work. If you're interested in some ideas, read the books related to those ideas. If you're interested in certain activities, try it out. You know, interact with it, learn from these activities. Don't only rely on other people's opinions or sources that are like 5-second sound bites on social media, because of course it's much easier than to simplify what's not simple and to sell you a lie with greater efficiency, basically. Now, finally, the fourth theme is about rebellion against societal conformity. The quote is, "In a closed society where everybody's guilty, the only crime is getting caught. In a world of thieves, the only final sin is stupidity." You know, the whole of the story is about defiance of norms. There is loads of anarchy going around, and the main characters are putting themselves in positions that even the most blunt and barbarous of us would probably find overwhelmingly crazy to get into. But the bottom line, I guess, is to embrace your individuality and authenticity. And a big but here that I wanted to mention is that embracing your individuality and authenticity does not mean that you offend others with ease, or that you do things that you should not do under the guise of being your own true self. I think there is a limit to it, and probably the limit is delineated by the golden rule, right? So do unto others as you would want to be done on yourself. But it certainly is the case that in a society where we're, especially from a young age in school, when we do need to conform to norms and when we do want to fit in with the crowd, it's very easy for us to forget who we are, to forget our authentic selves. And then when we're adults and we're empowered to get them back, we forget to do so. And you might be living this right now. I know that for many years, I feel, you know, looking back, I've discussed it with you before. Looking back, I feel like some parts of my life, especially between the age of like 13 and, I don't know, maybe 16 or 18, I was basically running on autopilot. Looking back, I did not feel, and I don't think I was in control of what was going on. I was pulled in many directions, you know, I was doing as I was told or as I wanted to seem to be doing. I've chosen many things that were not really for me, simply because other people around me that I looked up to did. And it's very easy for us to fall into this bracket, right? Maybe your parents have certain expectations about you. Maybe your peers are acting a certain way, so you want to conform because you want to be a part of the group. And of course, it comes with a price. You basically lose yourself to those machinations and, dances to other people's tunes. While you should ultimately, as an aware, self-aware adult, mature person, you should bring back your true self and allow it to shine forth, rather than be a societal conformity example. The one thing here that rings the bell for me is obviously the 1984 idea of resistance, and resisting the way everyone else is acting out. And of course, our day and age, even though we've been embracing individuality, I don't think we've been embracing individuality on this level. I think there has been a lot of emphasis on individuality in a sense of abandoning family structures, or pulling the middle finger to society, to societal norms, while ultimately doing the same as everyone else, just consuming rather than engaging with, for example. But the one thing that I think we don't have enough of is independent thought and independence per se. So, in line with these ideas, I would like to encourage you to check out the episodes about the Bitcoin Standard book, about the Sovereign Individual book, and about the Letting Go by David Hawkins. Each of these books, each of these episodes touch on these ideas in a different way, but focus mostly on this idea of becoming independent. And I truly believe that a foundation for a strong democratic society lies with a strong, independent, free-thinking individual, because only when you're thinking for yourself, when you're allowing yourself to be authentic, and when you're creative in your way of being, can you contribute, usefully towards the overall group, instead of just being one of many doing the same thing. And it's also, as we've discussed before, the best way to fight and to fend off totalitarianism of all kind, because it only takes a few saying what they think is true, and voicing their opinion with courage, not without fear, but with courage, that the state will not be able to handle it, because the truth, as it's written, shall set us free, right? So in the same way, I would encourage you, especially if you're fairly young, if you've not yet had a chance to think for yourself. Maybe you're just finishing your uni, maybe you're just finishing your high school, maybe you're just finishing the first year at your new job, your first job. Reflect for a moment, take your time with it, but reflect on what makes you you, and are the things that you're doing authentic to you? Do you think that these are the things that your little self when you were a child wanted? And there's a lot to be said about looking back into your childhood to get inspiration of what you truly want, because there comes a point at the very beginning of our life where we are unapologetically ourselves, and we are very authentic. And then, because we are forced to conform to societal norms, and we are trying to conform to peer pressures, we might forget these little selves. And I think it's a beneficial idea to look back at it. We've discussed it also in The Artist Way, one of the first book that we've discussed on the podcast. I'll link it below, which is a great way of looking into yourself in a creative way. And a book is a sort of a workbook. So my invitation for you for this week, the major one, is to do just that. To think what makes you you, what do you like to do, what is not necessarily resonating with you truly, and maybe get rid of those things that are not necessarily yours, and in exchange embrace those that do, and become more non-conformist and become more truthful to yourself. I think that would be a fair invitation from Mr. Thompson and his book Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So yeah, I think maybe, let me just check the notes here. Yeah, I think maybe that's about as far as we can go today. Slightly shorter episode for a change, but we've jumped from topic to topic fairly quickly, to be honest. So yeah, maybe a few announcements before I finish then. The first one is we're almost there with this season, of course. This is the 8th episode, if I remember correctly, and then there are 2 more. So fiction books are pretty much done. I am recording a number of interviews, which are more like conversations with some of my colleagues and allies that I've met along the way. So keep a lookout for that. I don't know, I might be sharing them with you over the next few weeks or months sporadically. I don't think they're going to be a season in and of themselves. And I certainly have a big list of episodes that I would like to go through. So I will probably get into the next season straight away after finishing with the fiction books. I am starting my next semester of studying again, so it will be slightly more hectic for me, which is okay. It's my choice. It's fine. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. But I will also I have an idea for a monologue yet again. And so look out for that. I think this might happen in the next few weeks because there are many things happening around the world that I think we should be aware of. And I would like you to be able to reflect on them as well. So I hope that this will also be useful and wonderful for you. Other than that, I guess, yet again, if you've not yet, please click that follow or subscribe button. And have a wonderful, wonderful week. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.